Folks, Bob Yeager here. So after we finished up the knife training at the Bear Scouts Mars Pack 413 Bear Den the other night, I got some questions from some folks, and they were good ones. That's the thing. That's why I like doing this stuff. Now, when we do an outing like we're going to do on April 2nd at my house with our Bear Den, there's a few things that in your Cub Scout manual it will say, hey, you should bring this stuff with you. Now I'm going to go over a few of these things, but at the same time I'm going to suggest additions, not necessarily for this outing. Some things definitely for this outing, some things just for everyday outings, whether it be hiking in the woods, whether it be going on a camping trip. These are things that I would do with my kids to prepare their bags because they have their own bags. Okay, so let's start with what the Cub Scout requirement is for a good kit. Okay, we're going to do my professional filming here. So requirements in a Cub Scout kit is a first aid kit. I always say it should be big enough to help the person carrying it. So within that kit, bandages, like a wet wipes, like sanitizing wipes, bandages. Bobby has medical tape and gauze in his. I also suggest keep a couple like toothpicks in there, something that's got a fine point, or even a pair of tweezers, for pulling out splinters and thorns, and maybe even a little mirror in there, because sometimes you can't see where the thing that's jabbing you is, whether it's on your butt, your back, the back of your legs, whatever, and the mirror helps see those things. Okay. Next thing is a water bottle. Bobby carries a stainless steel canteen because he can also gather water from a creek and boil that over a fire and disinfect his water. But general outings, a water bottle. They call for a flashlight. I suggest headlamps because if you need to use your hands around camp in the dark, which you typically do, that's why you need the flashlight. You don't want to be holding the flashlight with one hand while you're trying to do what you need to do. And these are adjustable. They tilt down. Headlamps can be very, very inexpensive, or they can be really expensive. Bobby's was about, I think, $20 at Lowe's. It's pretty decent. It has a strobe effect, regular flashlight, and a red light on it, I believe. The strobe effects, in case somebody needs help, it allows people to see you very easily in the dark. Mine's Princeton Tech. It's about $80, but I'm out in the woods more often, and I do a lot of this stuff professionally, so I need professional gear. The other things they call for is sunscreen and a hat and trail food. Trail food is about calories more than it is about just snacks. So you want something that will have a decent amount of calories, enough natural sugars in it, and things that are going to keep them occupied while they're going along until you get to making lunch and things like that, or dinner, whatever it may be. This time of year, we're going to remove the sunscreen from our pack because we don't need it. When we use a whistle, I like stadium whistles. That's got the little P inside. It's got the little ball inside there, because some of the keychain plastic whistles out there sound like a bird tweeting, and nobody would be able to tell if it was a whistle or a bird anyway. This has a very unmistakable sound. We're used to that sound. I bet you that was loud, huh? Should have told you to turn the volume down. We're used to that sound being like a stadium referee. It's a very distinctive sound, so we tend to keep those things in there. But you notice that there's a bandana on the table, 100% cotton bandana. I have my kids keep these. I talked about this at the knife training the other night because we can make char cloth from them, we can make bandages, we can make slings. This one's a little smaller than I would typically recommend, usually 3 foot by 3 foot. But that's something you want to keep in your kit as well. Now, when you come out to my place for the outing, make sure your kids are wearing long sleeves and shoes that can get wet and muddy. I typically wear, rain boots, something that's going to keep my feet dry. Bobby, I've waterproofed his shoes, but he wears a pair of just general walking boots. You can wear galoshes. I don't recommend wearing sneakers. It can get muddy out in the woods, and with it's coming up on April, we're looking at rain all week, so expect there to be puddles and mud. Okay? Now, what would I add to this? Now, for this particular outing that we're going to be having, you don't really have to add much. But if I was making my kids' new kit, something we had talked about the other night was cargo tape. You saw that there's plenty of uses for that, not to mention equipment repair. Containers to cook food in. That's kind of important. Cookable foods that got carbs in it and calories. I know ramen noodles, some of you probably don't feed your kids that, but think of the things that you could feed your kids that they could easily pack that's just add water, right? And that's what we're looking for, just add water type stuff. So you have your snacks and you have just add water type food to fill their bellies a bit more. Cordage. Bobby keeps a roll of 550 paracord. It's got a 380 pound tensile strength, breaking strength, and it's about 50 feet. I keep what's called bank line and a hank of 50 feet of paracord. Bank line, Mariner's bank line, it's tarred. Because I can use this as a ridge line for a tarp, and I can use the bank line to tie off my knots that won't slide on that ridge line, so I can really keep everything tight. Bobby also has in his kit 3 forms of fire. So he has a magnifying glass, stormproof matches, which we don't use very often, a ferro rod, and he has a Bic lighter in here. The magnifying glass, if it's sunny, you're always going to get fire if you need it. It's at least 5 power magnifying glass. I like 7 power myself. Bic lighter, because that's what we mainly use. We use a Bic lighter. All right. Since the knife training, well, why not have your pocket knife, a cutting tool in there, right? Bobby also carries a fixed blade knife that hooks to his belt or can hook onto the button of his shirt. This is the Mora 510. It's pretty basic. It's very sharp, but it's also a great campcraft knife, and they're only about $10 or $15. You can find them online. Mora makes beautiful, just great knives. They feel cheap. If you hold them, they feel cheap. They're great knives. He also keeps in his bag, and you don't need this for this outing, but it's just a suggestion, a compass. Typically, I'd want something with a magnifying glass and a mirror on it, and I'd want a Sunto MC2 global compass. They're about $80. That's what I carry in my bag, and I trust it. This one here is the Tracker. It works really good. You have your bezel ring, you have the dog house in it, and it is, I mean, it's a great functioning compass for basic setting your coordinates or finding your way in and out of the woods. All right, so this is very basic, but for the kids, they're just learning. This is okay. Okay, and these are about $15 or $20, somewhere around there. Do not buy the cheap Coleman compasses. If it's not a Sunto or a Silva, you're basically buying garbage. Okay, this one isn't liquid filled. It just free spins. It's magnetic. The MC2, the Sunto, is way better than this. So if you want to learn navigation, that's the one you want to get. We keep some kind of writing stuff in our bag. We keep Write in the Rain because if it gets wet, it's not going to smear or smudge or anything like that. And we also keep a carpenter's pencil because they're easy to sharpen with our knives and they write perfectly in the book. Then, hey, look, eating utensils. These are basically European eating utensils. They all connect together, or you can keep a hobo tool or something like that in your pocket. These are fairly light though, easy to clean. Something that's controversial, we don't use it much, is DEET. Controversial because it is an insecticide and it can cause skin irritations, and if you use too much of it, it can make you really sick. Spray it on your clothes. There's ticks, folks. This is tick season to the fullest. Ticks are going to be out full force, especially as it's getting warmer, wetter. You know, you want to keep something in there. This is a personal DEET spray bottle. They're about $1 or $2 at Target, and this is the Max DEET because Well, ticks like to crawl. Okay, but long sleeves, long pants, pair of boots, a hat, that is going into the woods gear along with your bug repellent. All right. Obviously, your leather strap, right? Because in case you need to hone your cutting tool. And then we keep two landscaper grade leaf bags, lawn and leaf bags that are between 3 mil to 6 mil thick. I like 6 mil myself. There's a reason for it. I can cut these down and make them into a tarp. He can cut a hole in it and put it over his shoulders if he needs extra rain gear. It can be a bag for collecting tinder or even collecting water in. They fold up nice and neat. They don't take up any room, and we've never had to really use these, but it's great to have them as a backup cover and collection source. Okay, so we keep those in there. The other thing is a good poncho. This is sized for Bobby. It's not one of the cheapos from Walmart. It's nice and thick. Yeah, you sweat underneath them and everything, but I'd rather have this than nothing. I carry a military grade ripstop poncho with me because it can also be turned into a tarp. I have 2 of them, and I can make a full tent out of these. They're ripstop material, so they're not going to get ripped on the briars and brambles and that type of stuff. But for the kids, just a nice heavy duty rain poncho that can fold up nice and neat, nice and small, because we want compact in our bags. Other than that, it's just about their shoes and their clothes. So boots, something that's going to keep your feet dry. I even suggest bring an extra pair of socks whenever you can. And long pants and long sleeve shirt. Dress in layers always. So if they're going to wear a t-shirt, which is fine, put a hooded sweatshirt over top of it, right? Bring a jacket on top of that. That way they can peel layers off if they get too hot, but if they get too cold, they can put those layers back on one at a time, which is a great way to do it. So what's nice about all this stuff is all of this that you see on the table here fits into this little satchel. And this is just a little Rothko, I believe, a little Rothko satchel. So Bobby's out in the woods. We marked the outside where we put our first aid kit with a red cross. So if anybody else needed to access his first aid kit or help him with first aid, they can go straight to his bag and they know exactly where it is. They don't have to dig through it. Fire kit is also marked. Fire goes right in here. So those 2 things are the 2 primaries that are going to go right on the outside. His whistle is generally going to be tied to or around his neck. We don't walk through the woods with things around our necks. The only time he'll put this around his neck is when we're stationary in camp. Generally, we're going to tie that to our strap, our shoulder strap. And we're going to generally feed our cargo tape through that shoulder strap. So we have our cargo tape, our whistle, and our cutting tool, if it's not in our pocket, secured to the outside of the bag. Our first aid kit and our fire kit, and you can just use an Altoids tin for that, or right where we can get to them, right? Things like our water, he might carry this on a strap or on a belt, or he might just tuck it in his bag, which is fine. Dishes. We're going to put things like this poncho in the back of the bag. I'm trying to do this while I'm holding the camera. Let me get a tripod here. Okay, let's see if I can get everything in the shot here. So what I'm going to do is just quickly pack this bag. I'm generally going to put things that are flat and compressed on the bottom, like our, let me make sure I'm in the shot. Yeah, you can see. Our trash bag liners are going to go in the bottom right there, like that. I'm generally going to put my water bottle on the side right there. If you're bringing any kind of pots, that type of thing, where it fits, that's what you're going for. That's why I like the Boy Scout, the old school Boy Scout pots, because they fit pretty straight. That's not what I carry, but for Bobby, that's what I want to see. My headlamp is going to go stuffed right down into the corner, the bottom corner of the bag over here. All right. Then I'm going to grab up my snacks and my notebook and my poncho. I'm going to put the notebook and the poncho right back here. Poncho towards the outside of the bag. notebook, and I'm going to put my pencil down in there. I'm going to take my eating utensils, like this, put that in there, a leather strop, paracord, and you have bug spray and possibly sunscreen if you have sunscreen, right? And then I'm going to take my food, my snacks, put those right there, because he's going to be wanting to access those first more than likely. But it's easy enough to reach into the back of the bag and grab the poncho out too for cover. We always carry cover with us, right? And I'm going to set these other things aside for just a moment. He's going to be wearing a hat on his head because that's where it belongs. Generally, the cotton bandana, you might put it in your pocket, but a lot of times we just roll it up and just stuff it down in there. And then we're going to work on the outside of our bag, okay? Next is our self-aid kit. We call it self-aid because it's only big enough for ourselves, not for everybody else. I'll put that right there. Bobby's compass is nice and flat, so I can generally put that, and I'm going to put it bezel in, meaning the bezel facing the bag. I'm going to just slide that right down in there and just kind of leave that hang out like that. All right, or you can tuck it in. It's up to you. Fire. We have the stormproof matches, and we have his fire kit. We're going to put the fire kit in first, and we're going to put the stormproof matches right beside it, just like that. Now, we're in pretty good shape to be able to tuck our bag closed, so we're just going to fold the sides in. And we carry a secondary water bottle with us, usually a metal bottle, 32-ounce bottle with us. He carries his and I carry mine. That one is typically full. The canteen that we put inside our bag is not always full. It's that backup in case we need to collect more water, basically. All right. So now you have all this other stuff, and what we like to do, this particular strap on his bag doesn't come off like mine does. Okay. So what we tend to do is we'll take our, and this is where these things come in very handy. We take our Swiss Army knife with the lanyard on it, and we just hook it in a loop like this, and many times it's just in his pocket and hooked to his belt loops. So we always wear pants with belt loops. And you can find any place where you can kind of secure that in. I like to set it just right inside the bag right there and slide that loop down like that, okay? Next up is our whistle. Like I said, I don't like walking through the woods with things wrapped around our necks. Do what you want, but we can just loop that through like this, secure it, tuck it right into the bag just like that. All right. Cargo tape. Once again, you can put a loop lanyard around this, like just a piece of paracord around this, and secure it to the strap. For right now, we'll just put it into the bag. And our fixed blade, we usually always carry this on ourselves, so it's on our belt. That way, if we need it to cut up tinder or whatever while we're on the trail, we can just slide it right out, and that's good. But most of you guys don't have that anyway. But you'll notice the 510 has a finger guard. This is specifically for kids, actually. Most moorers don't have the finger guard. This is specifically for children. This is what the Swedish actually teach their 4-year-old children to use. So we'll put that in there, just like that for right now. Make sure all the flaps are secure. And what he has is about a 6-pound pack that he's carrying with him, okay? But I'll guarantee you that he's more prepared than most people that are walking into the woods, especially when he's wearing the right gear and he has the right clothes on for the weather that we're having. And then coupled with my gear that I carry with me, we don't rough it, we smooth it, okay? So I carry tarps, and I carry ponchos, and I carry axes, and I carry saws, but mostly I carry a very big, this is a Defender, AquaQuest Defender tarp. It's about 10 foot by 10 foot. I carry tent stakes, my cordage. It comes with tent stakes, little ones actually. I carry my own cover. For me, your first form of cover is your clothes, right? I carry my food, a bush pot or two. I carry 32 and a 64-ounce water bottle, plus our heavier foods. Now, I carry just add water foods. A great way to go about that is getting things like Agassiz Farms, big cans of food. You can get eggs, you can get freeze-dried sausage like this, stuff like that. And you can pack it into small sandwich bags and just mix it right into your sandwich bags. Carry a bag of beef jerky with you. If you're having ramen noodle, you can add the beef jerky to the water while it's boiling, and it will rehydrate the beef jerky so you'll have steak in your noodles, right? I carry a hammock with me. It's a Grand Tuck. It's $100, double wide hammock with tree straps. With my tarp, I have a complete sleep system with my wool blanket. I keep a thin wool blanket in my bag too. So we're never suffering when we go to the woods. We're having a blast. We go out, we set up our shelter first. Second is we procure things for heat and fire and for, processing water. Third is we find that water source if we're going to need more water. But ultimately, we can set our camp up in 5 minutes and be dry. So if we're out and about on a day hike at a park or whatever it may be, and it starts to thunder and we're seeing the rain coming, in 5 minutes we can have our shelter set up. We can be sitting on dry things, raised off the ground, and we can also be sitting in front of a nice little fire just making some hot chocolate and some food. And as you can see, Bobby's kit packs down nice and compact. He can put that strap around his shoulder, have it right at his hip. He's got good shoes on. The only thing I would add to this pack if we were out longer than a day, even a day hike, I'd put dry socks in there. Generally, I like to put merino wool socks in there. The only other thing that you might add to that is like sunglasses, right? So that right there is a real camping kit in day hike kit. Can they be heavy? Yeah, but you only get used to carrying them when you practice, okay? And even for you older folks out there, you're kind of like, well, what should I carry? I just showed you. I will not allow my son to carry anything I wouldn't carry. And I want to know that even with my son's bag, I could get through minimally well with what's in his bag. Why? Well, what if we went rafting or canoeing and I lost my bag, but he still had his? Could we get through with that bag? So my thing is my kid's not going to have less than I do. He might have less weight and his stuff may be smaller, but I want to know that for one adult person, that bag can get them through, and I know his can. That's not saying you guys have to get all this stuff. For those of you coming to our outing, I hope you watched this all the way through. Good pair of shoes. Don't mind if they get muddy or wet. Galoshes are great. Some kind of rain cover, whether it be a raincoat or a poncho. Long sleeves, and like I said, dress in layers. Always, zip up hoodie, pull over hoodie even. Something that, under layers, that kind of thing. Long pants, because it is tick season, and a hat, right? You don't have to wear your Boy Scout uniforms, but those kind of things. Bring your pocket knife, but make sure it's secured and it doesn't come out of your pocket unless it's being used. And we're going to be setting up a tent, building a fire, cooking some hot dogs, and having a good old time. So I hope to see you all there. Check with Aaron for probably in his email for the address and that kind of thing. All right, folks. See you next time. Take care. Oh, you know what? For my regular subscribers that see this on YouTube, yes, this is the bag. You should at least have this at a minimum for your stuff. All right, folks. See ya.